When I say games like The Division, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Dark Souls, Final Fantasy, World of Warcraft, Elden Ring, Borderlands, or even Destiny, what kind of things do you actually think about? For me, I largely think about how these games offer an abundance of options for players to combat the world around them. Now, let's say Hogwarts Legacy. Do you think it fits? Do you think it has nothing to do with the other ones that I already named? I don't think I speak for everyone, but I know many of you out there enjoy playing games with a robust character customization system. Sure, making the character look like you want has some value, and yes, having meaningful choices in dialogue or actions to actually shape the world around you also matters. Yet, for me, I've seen over and over again the more detail a game puts into its character development, like all the actual, game interaction stuff, things like the skill trees or the stat systems, the different modifiers, with epic loot and all sorts of powerful different talents or traits or whatever you want to call it, the more likely I am to enjoy that game. This is why I enjoyed exploring in the Elder Scrolls games so much, especially Morrowind, with all the secret items you could actually find with all the unique different abilities and all this stuff. They were hidden throughout the world and it encouraged you to play outside of the actual main story. Or why I enjoyed games like Fallout, which not only allowed you to buff your preferred combat choices, but it also allowed you to invest in stats that altered dialogue options and made you a better con artist, basically. And this is why I grew so disappointed in Destiny, because the stats were largely trash. Like, woohoo, I invested 100 points into jumping and gained an extra foot. Or, looking at something like the Division franchise, sure, Division 2 and the Gear 2.0 is kind of boring and overly streamlined, making many options trash, but overall the huge variety of gear sets, brand sets, exotic stats, weapons, skills, talents, and specializations provide a player with hundreds of hours of build experimentation. In contrast to that, we have Hogwarts Legacy, which is a fun game in its own way, but it is not hard to be utterly disappointed by what the game passes off as character customization. In fact, the game is more of a one-man cosplay convention than it is an actual adventure. I went into the game wanting to know very little about how the systems work so that I could actually have fun learning how they work while I was playing and experimenting. However, it really kind of hit home early on that there was almost nothing to really figure out. You have three stats: health, which just seems like it is basically tied to your level; offense, which increases the damage you do and is the primary role on like 3 gear items; and then defense, which I guess lowers the damage you take and appears on the other 3 gear items that you can equip. As you advance through the game, you eventually gain access to the loom, which allows you to add traits to each piece of gear and an additional small offense or defense buff. Each of these basically comes in like 3 levels and range in strength from 6 to 18 to 30. 30 is eventually at like tier 3. And then traits have a general percentage based increase. For example, the trait that buffs all spell damage, I think it's concentration, that'll give you a spell damage buff of 3%, 6%, or 9% at tier 3. And while the more specific spell buffs, like the Defendo buff trait, that'll end up giving you like 5%, 10%, or 15% buffs. But it's only going to work for that one spell. So it's like, do I take 9% for all or 15% for one? I mean, I usually just went with 9% because it makes more sense. Also, it is actually worth noting that the damage buffs are multiplicative. And this basically means that if you have the 6 traits of concentration at tier 3, you're not going to be getting like a 54% damage buff because, obviously you have 6 rolls of 9% and you just add them together to get 54. No, it's not additive, it's multiplicative. So that means you're going to end up with 68% of a damage buff. And that's good. And, if you have the 6 tiers of tier 3 Defendo, well, then you're going to be getting 131% actual damage buff versus, just a 90% that, it looks like you would get. So the multiplicative bonuses of these traits is actually nice, but really that's about all you have for the gear. And the stupid thing about this is that, after players have access to spells like Avada Kedavra or the transformation spell, you can practically just wipe out all enemies in a single cast. I mean, this whole idea of like putting these traits on your armor pieces or buffing your armor pieces becomes meaningless. You just curse everything, and then poof, they're all gone. Like you don't even have to really try. I mean, you just avoid until you can curse everything, and then just cast one spell, and they're all gone. And look, to be brutally truthful, I did not give a single crap about traits or spell combos until I was about level 30. And that's when I figured I should finally see what they actually do. For the most part, I just crawled around and hit everything with Petrificus Totalis, and if I could not do that, I just kind of spammed dodge roll and pressed whatever spell button because I never really cared to remember what spell I assigned where, and it was just kind of like, I don't care enough to care. So yeah, the entire game has 3 stats. I don't know about you guys, but for me, this was maybe the worst thing about Hogwarts Legacy that I could experience. I mean, it makes the loot largely a joke. It dumbs down build diversity into curse, herbology, or spam everything. And sure, you could call sneaking around a build, but you don't actually need anything to one-shot 90% of the enemies with Petrificus Totalis. Honestly, I feel that the developers made a rather boring, no, a rather dumb choice and ruined the joy of actually looting anything in this game. And in many ways, along with looting, they ruined the exploration of the world because look, if I know there's nothing cool or interesting to find out there, what the hell am I going to do, looking for it? I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to go out looking for stuff. I'm not going to find things to do because I don't want to, because I already know there's nothing out there besides some sort of stupid decorative cloak that I could wear for no reason because I want to cosplay inside a game. Yeah, along with ruining the joy of looting, they ruined the joy of exploration. And there's really no hope of finding anything cool or interesting in the game because there can't be anything cool or interesting in the game because there's no point to it. There's no stats to support it. So, yeah, my verdict on the stat system is it just never feels rewarding enough and has greatly hurt the joy of the game.